Another sport. The chairman of a struggling football club resigned this afternoon. Just another sports story or something that affects the whole town. Tonight we look at a club in crisis. Good evening. Most of the important action involving Hartlepool United Football Club has taken place off the pitch recently. The club's debts have taken it to the High Court to fight winding up orders. The latest was adjourned yesterday for 4 weeks. A players' strike was threatened. The chairman, Gary Gibson, has been under fire. And this afternoon he resigned. He'll stay on the board until negotiations for a takeover by two Tyneside businessmen are completed. But apart from the die-hard fans, does anybody care? Tonight on Close Up North we ask how important is a football club to a town and look at possible new ways ahead for the smaller clubs. First, Steve Sutton reports from Hartlepool.
It's a foul, it's a free kick, and Andy Saville places the ball on the spot, and Crystal Palace are stunned. Nigel Martin to face Hartlepool's top goal scorer, Andy Saville.
January last year, and Hartlepool United reaches the zenith of its 85-year history.
The second division side lead against the team from the Premier League, but it will rankle with Crystal Palace.
Not only does the team knock Premier League side Crystal Palace out of the FA Cup, but they also climb to their highest ever league position, close to the top of Division 2. Now, 1 year later, the club has reached its lowest ever point. Inside 12 months, it's run up a pile of trouble. 2 managers have been sacked. The team's best players have been sold. The club has broken the record for the longest period without scoring a goal. There's been a players' revolt. The club has faced a series of winding up orders in the High Court. The chairman has decided to resign, and the club is next to the bottom of the table. Failure and Hartlepool have gone hand in hand down the years. The club has had to apply for re-election to the league more times than anyone else. It's got the worst FA Cup record of any league club. And Hartlepool are the only team to have had 3 hat-tricks scored against them in the same match. But then even miracle workers found it tough at the Victoria Ground.
The things that are hard work to other managers are not hard work to me. The discipline side of it and the judging of players, the training, the coaching, these are not problems as far as I'm concerned. Our problem at Hartlepool, my board and myself, gates, cash, etc., etc. They're our problems. We can cope with everything else.
So, when a Durham businessman called Gary Gibson arrived at the club in 1989 and started working miracles of his own, no one could quite believe it. The team avoided relegation, then won promotion for only the 2nd time, and better still, it stayed there. By the time Crystal Palace arrived for FA Cup humiliation, Poole were in dreamland. So what went wrong?
Perhaps we're too ambitious. We all believe we can do better, and that if we bring better players in, we're not that far away from the next division, and wouldn't it be nice to get the first division in place, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, whoever's there. And we strive for that, and we probably overextend ourselves, because the fans, quite rightly, won't come through thick and thin. They'll come when you're winning, and then all of a sudden, if you're out of the cup early as we were this season, and you're in the relegation zone, the crowd have disappeared, and so has your money.
But at the Hartlepool United Supporters Club, there's alarm at the spectacular nature of the decline.
We're back to what we were 10 or 15 years ago in a music hall joke, and at this present moment in time I think we're worse than that. We're a music hall joke completely, and its credibility is nil. And unless Gary Gibson goes and other people move in, we'll be defunct completely.
We have had good times with Mr. Gibson, but I'm afraid those good times are gone now.
Time for a new man.
He keeps everything to himself. Nobody knows what is going on but him. And you've got to have a damn good memory to do that. He needs more people on the board, with more people having a say in the running of the club. Not just him.
Gary Gibson is the classic hero turned villain in the eyes of the fans. The extrovert chairman, who lives in a rented apartment in Bamborough Castle, found himself under siege as the Hartlepool dream turned into a nightmare. But he insists his record is a good one.
You know, you paint a fairly negative picture, but in terms of financial performance, in terms of making money, and this football club makes a profit, a significant profit, and has done for the last 3 years, and must be in the top 30 of all clubs in the country in terms of financial performance, when you take into consideration the gates and everything else. So balance sheet wise, it's impressive.
We have to take his word for that. Companies House haven't had a set of accounts from the club for 3 years, while shareholders complain there hasn't been an annual general meeting since Gibson became chairman. Little is known of Gibson's other companies, though one of his property development firms, Redcastle Properties, went into receivership in 1992. Hartlepool players past and present are still owed money by the club. After a series of bounced paychecks, the first team insisted on being paid with gate money after home games. Paul Cross was the team's representative on the PFA, the Footballers' Union. He's since been transferred to Darlington.
I'm still owed a substantial amount of money, yes. Well, what I've had to do, I've gone on the creditors of the PFA now. I've put my name forward, and they'll have to just try and get the money back for me.
And you're talking of what sort of money here?
I'm talking 4 figures, really, and it's money that it's a short career. It's football, and it's money that you can put by and save for a rainy day.
The situation lurched from crisis to crisis. Players threatened strike action. The widow of former manager Cyril Knowles was sent a cheque for £5,500 after a benefit match. It bounced.
It's the honour of it all. It isn't so much the money. But I've got nothing personally against Gary Gibson. There's obviously a reason for it, and we'll just have to sit back and wait or whatever.
2 weeks ago, the club was back in the High Court facing another winding-up order. It was saved then thanks to the goodwill of its sponsor Cameron's, the town's brewers, and the local council.
We've added £10,000 to our original loan, which was made last year, of £30,000. That loan was to be repaid by community use of the facilities of the club. That community use has been well used, it's been well repaid. The club have entered into that repayment process with gusto. They've not drawn back at all from the welcome that they've given to the school children and the young football players and young sports people of Hartlepool. That's where the future of our town lies, and those are the people who are benefiting from this particular loan.
We've stood up when other people in the town haven't been there to be counted, but with ourselves and the council and certain other businesses, we put our money where our mouths are. If a subsequent creditor comes out of the woodwork for which we weren't made aware of at this time, then that remains to be seen. But at the end of the day, we've done the best that we can in the circumstances now, because bearing in mind I have a responsibility to our shareholders and our employees to spend the company's cash wisely. I've gone to the wire for Hartlepool United. I can't go any further, but I think what we've done should be sufficient to see them through.
For fans like Kevin McElhone, it's a good job they did. Life without their team just wouldn't be worth living.
We'll always be there, always follow them. We've got them in my blood. If the way we got put out the league, we just, I don't know, you try not to think about it because the club means so much to you, but if they did get put out the league, I can't see me doing anything else. I would never go and support Middlesbrough or Sunderland. You know, I'd rather just go and watch the Seagulls on the docks and go and watch them. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't support them. They're my life. They're my religion. At the end of the day, that's all it comes down to. Me is Hartlepool United.
For the fans then, following Hartlepool's fortunes is a way of life. But just how important is the football club to the town? Who better to answer that question than one of Hartlepool's best-known sons, Alan Wright. Born on the headland, he presented the Alan Wright programme on Radio Cleveland for 5 years. He runs his own publicity company, and last year he became chief executive of Durham County Cricket Club. His publicity work brought him the job of advising the council on their successful City Challenge bid for £37 million of government money for projects in the town.
Going back to when I was a kid, Third Division North days, glory days against Manchester United and so on, and I think purely in publicity terms, the fact that every Saturday tea time the town's name is there and people are seeing the name of Hartlepool. And I keep thinking of the Accrington comparison, that when Accrington and Stanley went out of the league years and years and years ago, even though the town of Accrington, I'm sure, is a lovely place, it's tainted with failure, tainted with disaster. I wouldn't like it to happen to Hartlepool, frankly.
Now, the town itself is going through a period of substantial change. Can you just sum up for us briefly the history of Hartlepool, what it had and where it's going?
I suppose it's about resilience. The town has changed. You know, the headland across my shoulder there was a little fishing village. And then, 100 years and a bit ago, the new town of West Hartlepool sprang up on the back of coal, iron ore, and eventually shipbuilding. Now, whether we like it or not, a lot of that's gone. The Durham coalfield doesn't exist. Iron ore in the Cleveland Hills isn't mined anymore. And realistically, shipbuilding is in Korea. It isn't in Britain. What Hartlepool's always been good at is changing. And I suppose 50 years from now, we'll look at the 90s as how Hartlepool changed. The future's in tourism and leisure, Imperial War Museum, the marina, all the good things that's happening in Hartlepool now. And the good thing as well is that realistically, if you bought a new factory to Hartlepool, the way automation is, it would employ a few dozen people. Tourism and leisure is very, very labour intensive, and therefore that's the way for Hartlepool jobs, that's the way the town is going to go. And I think perhaps a generation from now, people will see it's just another example of Hartlepool changing and doing it well.
So, a period of upheaval for the football club and the town. In the centre, workmen seem to be busy everywhere. Scaffolding clings to many of the buildings, while others await their turn. A far cry from the Hartlepool which, as recently as 30 years ago, echoed to the sounds of the shipyard. Thousands were employed in shipbuilding and associated industries. Now a marina and an armada of small craft take pride of place on the town's watery doorstep. And it's pride in these new projects and the need for more that's brought some of the leading citizens to question the wisdom of using council money to help bail out a struggling club.
I think we'd all love to see the football club survive because when it's doing well, it's a good advertisement for Hartlepool to get the name of Hartlepool across in the press and on the television. But I think many of us have got to ask what is going to be the cost of seeing the club survive. We've supported it through the local borough council to the tune of £10,000, and that's received universal support across all the political parties. But I think now it's time for the club itself and those in direct control to get their own house in order if they want to see the club survive. I think that Hartlepool over the next 10 years is going to be on the map because of quite different and very exciting developments, many of which you can see behind me here. The establishment of the Imperial War Museum's Maritime Centre, for example. And so if Hartlepool United Football Club want to be a part of that exciting new history, they really have to put their own house in order.
And on the streets of Hartlepool, there's no shortage of opinions on the controversial subject of council cash for the football club.
No, I think we should tidy the town up a bit more.
Decent shop.
Yeah, decent shop. Yeah.
Just wasting the money. Should be used for something better.
I've supported them for 40 years, so I think it's worth saving, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I think every town needs a football club, don't they? I mean, really. And
We lost without one.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And what about council money being used to help save it? Because some has been.
Well, they use it for everything else, so why not? Just don't know what to waste next in this town.
Yeah, well, it's a local football club around here, so I think it's worth saving. Any football's better than no football. So.
Well, I wouldn't like to see the club go up. I think they need a bit of help just every year. They need financial assistance every year. But they don't do a lot for the community. I remember some were getting turned off them over the summer.
Definitely think the club's worth keeping. It's an asset to the town, isn't it?
Yeah, the waste money, another thing. We need it. It's in the papers and on the television every week, and it keeps the town in the public gaze, which is a good thing.
Oh, they'll have to save it. They'll have to save it just for the town. It's having people come to the town and spend their money when they come to the football match, don't they? Anyhow, my lads think it's